don't ever complain to your wife, ever, about anything.
But on the personal side, I had to give her her freedom, and that really lessened the stress in the home.
Goal that you wake up and you go, shit, I should have done that 5 years ago. Shit, I should have done that 10 years ago, which is obviously the purpose of your podcast, is to enlighten people to wake up maybe a little bit earlier than you and I did.
100%, man. Guys, welcome to the TMCT podcast. We're on the Mancave Talk pace.
Ooh,
what's going on, man?
I love it. What's up, brother?
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Bro, so you're an inspiration to so many people, and in real estate. I don't want to talk about real estate because they could go to your YouTube channel to talk about that.
Actually, I don't know a lot about real estate, so I'm glad.
Just a little bit, right? I want to talk about family.
Okay.
Because this is the part that I feel like most men are struggling with, especially in real estate. You travel a lot, you do a lot. How does balancing kids, wife, all this type of stuff, how does it work?
Well, if you think about a scale, right, you're thinking about balance. And if I'm going really hard on this end and I've got all this weight on my end, the male side, the dominant like alpha side, I need a counterweight to balance it all out. And so I could tell you that, you know, we sit down and we plan all these things, but the reality is I have a counterpart. My wife, my purpose balances me out by how hard she goes at being the CEO of the home. My wife is the CEO of the home. She owns the home and she owns all of those types of things. And I think we balance it because I have a spouse that gets what I do.
I've never heard that terminology before, the CEO of the home.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
CEO of the home. I let her make the decisions on a lot of things, like what classes the kids go to, when they go to those classes, how much help she wants to hire versus doesn't want to hire. I realized I really wanted, actually I went through a divorce early in my life, and the main reason I went through a divorce is because I married a woman that didn't want to have kids. And her purpose was not the purpose of the counterbalance I was looking for. And so everything was out of whack, and our divorce, our just marriage was great. But when it came down to, I need somebody on the other side, you know, taking care of the household, what household is there to take care of if we don't have any kids, right? So that's my desire. Other people, I get it. They don't want to have kids. I totally get that. But for me, I wanted to have kids. And so my first wife, it was like she was just sitting at home doing nothing. Where are you? When are you coming home? Those types of things. And I'm like, you're not there's no counterbalance here. There's no balance. It's like you're pushing me to the other side. And so that obviously didn't work out. And when I met Laura, she had a 1-year-old baby, and she also had a guy on her side that didn't want to have kids. He didn't want to be involved. And so it was kind of a match made in heaven. So when I met Laura, she realized what her purpose on this earth was, which was to be a mother. And I chose very early on, I'm not going to tell her how to do things or how to be a mom, because I think what happened with her is that there was a piece of misinformation that somebody gave her of like, you have to work, you have to provide equal amount of value to the household that your husband does. And I think a lot of women think, oh, that means I have to work and earn money. And so for a long time in our relationship, she's working at Nordstrom lingerie department, which was actually pretty awesome, to be honest.
We could do that.
Oh, I'm like, all the underwear, bring it all, bring it all. So she was doing that. She was a real estate agent at the same time. She was doing short sale negotiation. She was doing all of these things at the same time. And one day, you know, she was dropping Asher off or doing something, and she just was honest. And she said, I'm not happy. Not happy with our marriage. She just was like, I'm not happy with my lot in life. And I said, well, what do you want? And she said, I feel embarrassed to tell you. Like, tell me what's going on. What do you want? Like, am I doing something wrong? She goes, no, I've been lying to myself. I just want to be mom. I just want to own what's going on in our home. I don't want to feel like I have to go out and make the money and do the thing. I want to be the CEO of the home. Yeah. And I was like, that's why I married you. Like, what? I was wondering why you were out there. She goes, I thought you wanted me out there.
Wow.
So the conversation just didn't happen for 4 or 5 years into our relationship. And then, you know, there's been times where I've suggested things to her and she goes, remember, I'm the CEO of the home. I'm going to do what I want to do. I go, you're the boss. So like what classes they go to, when they go to the classes, whether she has a full-time nanny or she has a part-time nanny, and when that nanny shows up, there's times in my mind, just like anybody else, when you're working at a company and there's a CEO running that company, where you question what the CEO is doing, but then you remind yourself, hey, hold on, I'm like in their domain and I'm doing what they want to do. So I let her be the CEO of the house in terms of all the domestic and family related things, if that makes sense. Most men thinks that their woman is lazy when they're not making money. Well, I think that's a self-esteem thing on themselves, is that they realize they don't have the skills to make enough money that their wife doesn't have to make the money. That's huge, because when you hear, I talk to men all the time, and one of the things they come back and they're like, well, if she could do the acquisition, or I want her to do this part or that part, and I'm like, well, did you ask her if that's what she want to do? That's a good point. Right. And they end up putting a lot of pressure, and I'm guilty of this. Let me put myself out there. Yeah, me too. Right. Like, until we did a predictive index test, and the test said that, like, I remember my coach was like, hey man, she's like 6 months from shutting down, because you're putting so much pressure on her, asking her to be something she's not, that she is going to shut down in probably 6 months. And I cried on that call. Yeah. Because I had no idea of me asking her to come out of her zone, and I'm the person that's in front, and I'm like, you gotta market yourself and put yourself out there more. And she's more of the integrator type. Yeah. Oh, and I know her. She's amazing. She is. She's the CEO of our home too. Yeah. We have a lot of people in our community love her. She's an amazing human being. Man, and so when it comes to, you talked about hiring people, hiring help. Yeah. That's not a concept that most people have. There's still like some type of it's like your mom and dad told you when you're growing up, like, pick up after yourself, do this. Like, if you're like, clean up after yourself, I think is probably the thing that sticks in your brain. Yeah. And so hiring somebody to do your laundry, hiring somebody to clean your house, doing these type of things, I think there's two things that go along with it. One, preconceived notions of like, why would somebody want to clean my house? Like, I would never want to put that on somebody else. Yeah. But then there's people that are on this earth that are like, I love to clean. I'm so obsessed with it. And I love bringing organization. I love doing laundry. Like, it's crazy, but there are people that really love that. So once I broke through the thought process of there's nobody wants to do this. Right. And then also the thought process of, I'm not acting like I'm better than anybody by saying, I don't want to do this. Right. Because when you hire somebody to do something that is beneath your time, you almost feel bad giving it to them. You're like, oh my gosh, you're picking up my dog's poop. I feel so bad. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But the reality is you're giving them an opportunity to build an entire business and feed their family and do all that kind of stuff by giving them their zone of genius. And then you go and do your zone of genius. And it was hard. I mean, if I could go back, I would have hired people probably 10 years ago instead of 5 years ago. Wow. Because it would have freed up your time. Freed up my time. And then also, if you do a time audit and you look at the way you actually spend time with your kids or spend time with your spouse, Laura and I would do a lot of laundry where it was like, I would do the laundry throughout the week because I wake up so early. But then we would have like a folding party on Fridays and we would watch TV while we folded clothes. But at the same time, my wife's like, oh man, I'd really like to go on more dates. I'm like, yeah, we'll go on more dates when we're not so busy. Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm saying that as we're folding laundry together. It's like, why don't I just hire this and we have all the time to go on more dates? Right. So I wasn't valuing what I was doing with my time, and I was, making excuses by saying, well, we can't go on dates. We can't do this. We can't do that because we're so busy with these other things. And one day I went on a trip. Laura had Corbin. She had just had Corbin. I had spoken on stage and I came home after 4 days, and the laundry, which I'm usually the one loading it and changing it over early in the morning, hadn't been done. And I didn't have clothes to wear when I got home. I was like, well, damn, buy some more clothes, you dumbass. Like, why do you have more clothes? But it was like, why would I put this on my wife? That's not why I married her. I didn't marry my wife to do things that I could hire out, right? Cooking, laundry, those types of things, whatever. That's not why I married her. And I hired a girl without even asking my wife. I just hired a girl. And I do a lot of things where I don't ask my wife because I don't need to, right? And neither does my wife. And I hired this girl. And I don't know why. We never talked about it. And all of a sudden, we just had all the time to go on dates and trips and do all these kind of things. And then the biggest thing was I would tell my wife things like, hey, you should do this and you should do that and you should do this. We should hire a nanny. We should, get somebody to pick up Asher to do the thing and and we'd have more time. And she would say, no. And then 3-4 years after me planting these seeds, one night we went to dinner with Jerry and his wife, Anne Marie Norton. Mm-hmm. This is about 4 years ago. And I could hear at the dinner table, Laura and Anne Marie talking about nannies and doing all this stuff. And I'm sitting over here like, oh man, they're having the conversation. So on the drive home from their home, she goes, I think we should hire this person. And I had to bite my tongue from saying, I freaking have been saying this for 3 years.
Yeah.
But once we started hiring people to just take things off our plate, the time that I would rather spend 4 hours of focus time than 8 hours of just we're hanging around watching TV time.
Right.
And most people are doing the latter. They're doing the 8 hours of watching TV time, whereas I'm doing the 4 hours of hyper amazing focused, planned, hey, we're going to do this and accomplish this. And there's, of course, leeway for funny jokes and laughing and wrestling and that kind of stuff with the kids. But before, it was like we had so much wasted time just hanging around.
Yeah.
And so just becoming more efficient with your life and realizing the older you get, I think the older you get, the more you realize how finite the resource of time really is.
Yeah. So you guys have scheduled date nights and stuff like that?
We don't have scheduled date nights because I have a chaotic schedule, but we do a lot of dates. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like some people are like, every Friday we go on a date. That's not my life.
Yeah. And I mean, the type of life you live, definitely you got to have some level of flexibility, but the importance is kind of like, do you need every Friday to fill her cup, or like what fills her cup?
The thing that fills her cup is literally doing what she feels her purpose is, which is she wakes up in the morning. The only thing she has to think about all day long, she doesn't have to worry about, putting money on the credit card. She doesn't have to worry about pulling cash out. Doesn't have to worry about signing up for this class or, can I afford to hire a nanny to watch or pick up Asher from school because he wasn't 16 at the time while I go do these two things with the girls. Her thing that fills her cup is I'm 100% mom. Mm-hmm. When I met Laura, this is an interesting story. Mm-hmm. We got plenty of time. So Laura, the story with Asher is that she gets pregnant with Asher. She meets this guy at Wells Fargo Bank. This guy meets Laura when she's going to ASU, really great school. Laura has a full ride, a mathematician brain, and she gets a mathematics scholarship, full ride. She's working at Wells Fargo simultaneously. She's just a worker bee. Mm-hmm. She wants to work. And she meets this guy at Wells Fargo. He convinces her to drop her scholarship and go to New Mexico, of all places, El Paso.
Wow.
Or Texas, El Paso, Texas. And put him through school.
Oh my God.
And she's just a supporter. She's like, I'm ride or die for my man, So she moves to El Paso. She's working 2 jobs. This dude never gets enrolled in school. A year goes by. They get pregnant. Mm. And she goes, oh my gosh, my parents are going to freaking disown me. I left my scholarship. I did everything I was supposed to go get this thing and have a job. And now I'm here in El Paso and I just got pregnant.
Wow.
So she flies home and, she's 19 at the time. She flies home to tell her parents, hey, I'm pregnant with this dude who you guys didn't like in the first place. And I kind of ran off with him because I knew you guys didn't like him. And I was hoping that he could turn into the man that I was hoping he was going to turn into. And that I could bring him back like the knight in shining armor. And then you would love him and appreciate him and respect him. And instead I'm coming to tell you that I'm pregnant with an illegitimate child.
How'd that go?
Her parents disown her.
Jeez. Get
the hell out of our house. They're born again Christians. So they're fanatics. And I love them to death. They're phenomenal, but she flies back to El Paso. She opens up the apartment. Everything's gone except for a note that says, I can't do this.
What?
Right?
Wow.
So she has to call her mom and dad. Her mom and dad are basically like, fine, you can live in our basement so we don't have to basically see you.
Yeah.
So she's in shame mode for a mistake she made. And now she has a child coming on the way, which in her mind was, I was put on this earth to, create another human being and nurture that human being and put them into existence and all that. She's like, biologically, I am designed to build this child. but I'm being banished to a basement and I was, whatever. She finds out this guy had been cheating on her this whole time, that he convinced her to go to El Paso. She goes to confront him. He punches her in the face, gets this, it's this drama, a lot of drama, right?
TV.
Yeah, TV stuff, like Jerry Springer type of stuff, right? And so Asher, my son, who's 16 today, actually, was born, and Laura was almost just like, nobody's ever going to want me. All I want to be is a mom. And so what I'm going to do is I'll just figure out how to be a single mom and raise my son, and nobody's ever going to want me because now I have this illegitimate child. And it was interesting that simultaneously I was getting out of a divorce from a woman who didn't want to have children, and all I wanted was children.
Wow.
And so, she's down in a basement raising this child who's like 9 months old at this time. And she sees that my Facebook profile was connected to a friend of hers, Sabrina. And she's like, who's this Pace guy? And she goes, oh, he's this guy. And I think he's married, but I think he's going through a divorce. And so Laura was waiting for me to get divorced to message me.
Are you kidding me?
Not kidding you. So I go, it was back when Facebook, you could be like married to who, or It was like in a relationship with whatever. And so she waits until I say divorced or single or whatever it was. And that night she sends me a message, and that very next day we go on a date, and we've been together ever since.
Wow.
But what she said in her messaging to me, I asked her on a date. What she says is, "You're hot." That was the only thing she says. I reply back and I go, "Wow, let's go on a date." Like, oh, damn. Okay, let's go on a date.
Yeah.
You frisky little devil. Yeah. Let's go on a date. We go on a date, and as I'm driving to pick her up, she sends me a text, and she in a very ashamed way, felt embarrassed to tell me, hey, I just want to let you know I have a 1-year-old child. Mm-hmm. And so think about the mindset that came from, I was hit in the face, I was kicked out of the house, everybody told me that this child was never going to amount to anything. Right. And it was her, and deep down inside, it was her sole purpose on the planet.
Wow. And
nobody was breathing encouragement into her. In fact, they were making her feel bad about it.
She was sunken at that point.
She was sunken. And so I come along, I'm like, I come from a family of 12 kids. All I want is kids. I'm like, I haven't even met you, and we're talking about kids already. This is weird. So why don't we pause that conversation for at least a day? But it worked out perfectly. And for 5 years, I think her and I both lied to each other. I should have asked her and said, do you want to work? Like, why are you working? And she does love to work, but once we had more kids, she just was like, I want to wake up in the morning and just think about my kids. And here's why. For those first 4 years, we were not living together. The first year and a half, we weren't living together. I was helping pay some bills, and I was helping do some things as boyfriends, sometimes do. Mm-hmm. But she was going to work and dropping Asher off every day. Mm-hmm. So in her mind, she's like, I'm dropping off my son every day to go to work because that's what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
And now here we go. We're about to have another child, Corbin. And she says to me, she goes, the last thing on this planet that I ever want to do ever again is drop my son or my daughter or anybody off at daycare ever again.
Wow.
And she says, I feel bad to ask you, but is it okay if you fire me from being your TC? I go, oh my gosh, I didn't know. And so I'm ashamed, but her and I really didn't have that final solid conversation until about 6 years ago. And I wish we would have had it 10 years prior, which was, what do you really want to do in your life and how can I support you? We didn't have that. It was just like these unspoken horrible things that we put into our relationship that took forever to get rid of.
And I'll tell you, that question right there, that conversation is one of the main things why men don't get their wives to be on the same page with them. Mm-hmm. Not understanding what they want to do, right? Because we kind of have this, you're supposed to work, you're supposed to do these things, you're supposed to cook, clean, wash, sex, like all those things. Like that's what you come with, almost like you go buy this at the grocery store.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be like that. And a lot of times women want different things, but we never ask.
Yeah, we never ask. We never think. So I think we maybe judge based on our mom or whatever we end up doing. But I do see a lot of men, and I said at the very beginning of the podcast, I see a lot of men have deficiencies in themselves and they're stressed out about the need for them to go out and make it happen financially. And so what they do is they take some of that burden off themselves and they go put it in their wife's basket. They go, hold on, this is too stressful. I mean, they're not consciously saying it. I think they're subconsciously saying, they're saying all this stress that comes with me being inadequate, 'cause you're inadequate. You're supposed to get the skills, network, build yourself up, sacrifice, sleep, sacrifice everything you possibly can. Both parties do, depending on how high you want to rise. But the husband, and you're in that traditional role, is supposed to go out and make the money. And other men do this, they take a portion of that anxiety and they go, you know what, you're my partner, so I'm going to put that on you. You go get a job, you go do this thing. So when I hear men say stuff like, how do I get my wife to go do this and make money and be my thing and run my back end and get on the same page? It's like, yo, bitch, you ever ask her this? You ever, you sissy man, like go have the conversation. And I am as guilty of that as anybody else. I assumed things. I assumed she wanted to do those things. And I assumed because women they're way more nurturing than we are by default. So they go, oh, my husband needs something. I'm just going to rise to the occasion and do it. And so we just assume because their actions, they start doing the thing. We go, oh, they want to do these things. No, dude, she's just doing what she should to support you, but you need to go out there and shoulder the burden on the finances. And dude, I'm as guilty of. Have you gone through that too?
Oh, 100%. And I've been divorced because of it from previously.
Like asking your wife to bring finances to the table and work and be more in her masculine than in her feminine.
It was my drive going and pushing her and not realizing. And me and Jazz, we almost got divorced because of it. And not that we said we were going to get divorced, but I heard her use the same words that my ex used. And that literally made me shut down.
The patterns were showing back up.
Exactly. And at that point in time, that was the first time I actually looked in the mirror and said, I got work to do.
Yeah.
And I went to work. I got off of social media for 2.5 years.
Damn.
And it was like legit going to counselors, going to like coaches and all that type of stuff to be a better man.
Yeah.
And so I had to work on me before realizing like, oh, my bad, babe.
Yeah.
Right? This is on me. This isn't on you, right? Because I was trying to get her to be a part of the business and do things. And I'd call her lazy. I'll be like, you're lazy.
Oh, shit.
Dude, I did it. All right, guys, I really hope you're enjoying the podcast. Like I said, leading up to the launch of this first episode is that we're giving away to the first 100 people that follows me on this page and on our Instagram account that you're gonna get access to my High Performance Primer digital program. So click the link below in the description and add the coupon code upon checkout, TMCT100, to get your prize. It's 100% free with incredible value. And guys, we're really not gonna do this again. So go grab it now. Now, back to the podcast.
Wow.
I did it.
I've had those thoughts too, like when I was younger and immature. And I think it was me being so stressed out about knowing deep down that I needed to go out and learn how to make more money to survive, not just survive, but also thrive financially and take care of all the bills. And when, your female counterpart says something like, oh, the car's having issues, or our insurance is not that great, our copay is whatever. A lot of men get defensive, like, don't you see how hard I'm working? I'm working so hard. I'm doing all the things and and you get very defensive instead of just going, which I would have done, is, yeah, you're right. I need to step up to the plate. I need to make an extra $4,000, an extra $10,000, an extra $20,000 a year. What skills can I go work on to better myself? But instead, a lot of men go, gosh, damn it, you're bougie. Like, chill out. Why do you need all this new shit? It's like, bro, it all comes back down to you.
Yeah.
And I like, you'll see I'm wearing a John Deere shirt. I've been wearing a lot of John Deere stuff lately. I know it sounds corny.
Tell me about that.
Because my wife said one day to me, she said, thank you for being my tractor. I go, what do you mean? And she goes, a tractor is no good left in the barn. A tractor is meant to be out in the field planting seeds and plowing and doing all the things, and that's what a tractor is for. She said, thank you for being my tractor. And I said, thank you for being my barn where I can feel at home.
Ooh. Ooh, that's good, bro.
And so I've been wearing a lot of John Deere stuff because I'm like, wow, I was put on this earth to work. I was put on this earth to go do those things and plant the seeds. And my wife is like, I want to be here to provide a safe haven for you. I want to nurture our children. I want to, like, watching my children love each other is a direct reflection of how my wife shows up.
100%.
And so when people say, oh, my wife should be working, it's like, bitch, she is working.
Yeah.
She is working 10 times harder than you are. And you don't have the tools that she has. I don't have the tools that my wife has.
Yeah.
And a very quick little story about that, 45 seconds. My wife is feeling guilty. A lot of women will feel guilty about taking care of themselves because it's like, do you know this thing about flamingos, how they lose their color?
No.
Oh, very interesting. So here's truth. You ever seen a flamingo who's not as pink as the other ones?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know why that is?
No.
It's a mother who loses all of her color when she's giving everything to her child.
Really?
Yep. Flamingos, the lighter pink flamingos are mothers that have children. And so it's the only animal on the planet that God lets us see how much the woman is depleted while taking care of other people.
Wow.
And so a lot of women don't get their pink back for a long time. Oof. And it's crazy. Now when you see flamingos, you'll never look at them ever again the same. And look it up. Google this. Google, why does a flamingo lose its pink?
Yeah.
And you'll say it's because the mother gives everything to its child, gives everything to its husband, gives everything to its spouse. And so a lot of men don't realize that. And when you call a woman lazy, it's because you don't stop and appreciate, the foundation. And the problem is you see like a husband and a wife, and a lot of women, they go, oh, my husband brings so much more to the table, because they look at this big house, this big empire. They go, look at this big castle. My husband's this big castle, and he's this thing. He's the thing that you see. Mm-hmm. Okay, but the whole thing would crumble if you didn't have a foundation.
1,000%.
And the problem is you can see about this much is the foundation. You can see that much, although it's stronger than the entire castle itself. So when you don't value how much the woman or the female counterpart brings to the table, and you don't do what you've done, which is I'm going to work on myself. And same thing with me. I just have 1,000 years to go. I'm like, dear God, please let me live on this planet for another 500 years so I can finally potentially maybe get to my potential. I have so much work to do. But it sucks that at 40 years old that you wake up and you go, shit, I should have done that 5 years ago. Shit, I should have done that 10 years ago, which is obviously the purpose of your podcast, is to enlighten people to wake up maybe a little bit earlier than you and I did.
100%, man. When it comes to finances, because she's the CEO of the home, how do you guys kind of make that work?
Easy. Bradley said something to me 4 years ago. He said, if your wife goes to Target and has to think about how much money is in the bank, or if it's going to upset you about the credit card, then you're a lazy piece of shit.
Damn.
Get to work. Get to work. That's what he said. Get to work. You should tell your wife to go spend so much money at Target that you get sick of spending money at Target. I was like, wow, what a different viewpoint. So what I did with my wife is I put her on a salary of $100,000 a year. She gets paid a salary, and she's an employee of the organization, the empire. So she has $100,000 cash. She does whatever the F she wants to do with it. I don't know what she does with it. I don't care what she does with it. And then she also puts everything on the family Amex, and I pay it off every Friday. Every Friday I pay it off. I don't care. I don't even look what she's spending the money on. I don't care. You go do whatever you want to do. I'm sure it's for the kids. And I did that about 4, maybe almost 5 years ago when Bradley told me that. And so then all the finances, I have a bookkeeper that pays all the finances. All the bills are paid for out of like the family finances, but it's all the money that I make. And my wife has her own $100,000, because I also realized that what I was doing when I was younger is I would give my wife access to my money.
My money.
Oh, what a piece of shit. Younger version of Pace, you're a piece of shit for thinking this. And if I could have gone back and I said, no, this is our money. It doesn't happen without her. You're not as motivated. You're not as empowered. You're not as supported without her in that feminine energy. And it was when Bradley said that to me, I go, all right, I'm changing this up. I'm putting my wife on payroll. She does what she wants. I'm giving her on a credit card. She spends what she wants. And there's months where like my bookkeeper will go, hey, did you know that, blah, blah, blah. And I go, perfect. Tell her to spend more.
Yeah.
I need to be more efficient. It forces me to be more efficient. It forces me to do this. Now, I hope I'm not making her sound like she's a lunatic. She's very frugal. She's very good. But also, I don't want her going, and if it's anything with the kids, if there's a moment where she has to stop and go, do we have money for this? Then that means I didn't do my job.
Bro, I did the opposite, where things
currently, you mean? Your financial situation is different than mine currently.
It's different, but I had to come up with a similar system where we call it allowance, right? Where she has her own money to do her own thing, because I used to see what she was spending her money on.
Yeah. That'll drive a lot of people crazy.
I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Right? Like, you got to stay in line and all that type of stuff. And so we had to come up with a system for her to have her own card that I don't see, and you just spend whatever you want. Because again, I'm like, you're not bringing in all the money, man.
Yeah, you're like, hold on a second. I've made comments, like jackass comments, where I'm like, as fast as I can make it, we have figured out a way to spend
to get rid of it.
But that was, again, 4.5, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And when Bradley said that to me, and I said, for every $10,000 my wife spends, I need to figure out how to be more efficient and more profitable in my endeavors. And honestly, I need to find another revenue or I need to find another stream of revenue. So I stopped thinking that way. But you decided to give her an allowance that has nothing to do with you, which is smart.
Nothing, absolutely nothing. And it's profits from the business that just goes there, and you go do your thing.
Yeah.
I don't get to judge you with the Amazon boxes that comes in every single day, all this type of stuff. That was a very, very, very big stress point in our relationship until we separated in that way. Now we still we have our money together that comes in, and we do the profit first system, money coming in and how it's broken up and all that. But on the personal side, I had to give her freedom, and that really lessened the stress in the home.
Yeah, dude, no grown ass human being wants to feel like another human being is telling them where to spend their money.
But I'm the man.
Yeah. I did that until I was 35. I mean, guys, I did it for 20 years the wrong way. And, part of the reason why my wife always wanted to have a job and work wasn't just because I didn't ask her. It's because I would say stupid adolescent things to her about how she was spending her money. So her thought was, well, I'm going to make my own money so I can do whatever the freak I want. Mm-hmm. And now I put her on payroll. She is her job title is the CEO of the home. Mm-hmm. Her money she makes is $100,000 a year is her money because she earned it. Mm-hmm. And then the credit card is for the house stuff. The $100,000 is whatever she can go blow money on. Go blow it. Yeah. Go through it. Ask for a raise, for heaven's sakes. She's never asked for a raise, but go ask for a raise. And the Amazon boxes too. I was talking to Grant Cardone about this like a year ago. I was at dinner with him and Elena. And somebody made a joke about the Amazon things. Like, just like you said, like, oh yeah, my wife, like every time I come home, there's stacks of Amazon boxes. And Grant says, you know how I feel about that? It means I'm doing a good job.
Right.
I was like, great perspective.
Yeah. I needed to shift my perspective. Now it doesn't stress me out because I'm like, she got her money. Go do your thing. Yeah.
And the other thing too, I would say that you and I both know is, you want to make sure that you have a spouse that is not a lunatic, okay? And what I mean by that is like Asher is at an age where he's looking at girls, just like I was. And the thing that gets young dudes interested is like the girl in the nice dress, right? But I'm like, we're in a drive-through at Chick-fil-A and there's this girl with a smile. She's being super sweet. I'm like, bro, that's the girl you marry right there, man. That's the girl you marry. He's like, but she's not my type. I go, bro, I promise you, she is everybody's type, dude. Like, she knows what it means to work hard. She knows what it means to be happy, even when you're working your ass off. Like, that is wife material, bro. Yeah. And so many dudes will go the wrong direction where they're chasing only looks, and they forget you got to get a woman that understands how to work hard, not because I want my wife to necessarily work for money, but I want my wife to understand what it means when I go work for money and what sacrifice that is for both parties and what the value of a dollar is. And why is that important? One, because you want to feel appreciated when you go do your job. Yeah. But two, if you have a woman that came from a blue collar family or somebody who's a working family, they're going to appreciate your money. They're not going to go, okay, well, yeah, I need to buy a new watch every month and I need a new car every year. I need a new this. Like, the reason you married Jazz is because she was the right woman for you.
She was.
And the reason I married Laura is because she was the right woman for me. But my adolescent mind did not give her permission to be herself. I was trying to control her, like, don't overspend and don't overspend. It's like, if I was that worried about her overspending, why the freak did I marry her in the first place?
Man, I realized that I was not a good leader. And it was a leadership problem.
Yeah.
And when I started to become a better leader, to empower her to do different things, that's when things changed. And so in that 2.5 years, when I was just like, what do I need to work on? Who do I need to become? I needed to be a better leader. And once that started to happen and I started to empower her to do different things, and it was a mindset shift for me, like 100%, because my dad, great man, still married to my mom and all that type of stuff, but she didn't have the flexibility to do things. She doesn't have the financial anything because he controlled it. He brought in the money, and she's a doctor. She's more educated in that sense than my dad, and so she could bring in more money than my dad, but he controlled the money. You know what I mean? And so there's some things that I seen that I thought was normal. Yeah. But I had to redo and build my own culture and kind of learn it different.
Well, what I love about what you're doing and like you've niched into your coaching is really focusing on men where they think there's something wrong with their wife. But the reality is their wife is just waiting for them to wake up and lead. Oh my God,
bro. That's like, at 100%.
Their wife is sitting there praying like, dear God, please tell me when my husband's going to wake up and start leading this family instead of blaming everybody but himself. You know, like that's what's going on in a lot of these women's mind. And they're so patient and loving that they're not going to say that to their husband, but that's what's really going on.
Dude.
And nobody better than you to work on that and show them the light.
Man, thank you. And I tell my wife, I'm like, I could guarantee in 90 days that I could help somebody get their wife on the same page. In 90 days.
Yeah.
She's like, how could you do that? Like, I'm like, because it has nothing to do with her.
Yeah.
It has zero to do with her. Everything to do with the man.
Yeah, all she's doing is waiting.
Just waiting, right?
I'm waiting for I call it Peter Pan syndrome. Yeah. It's like, or like Toys R Us syndrome. I'm a Toys R Us kid. I don't want to wait. I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid. It's like all these men that don't want to grow up. They want to be Peter Pan for the rest of their life. The women are waiting for them to get out of the Peter Pan syndrome.
1000%, man. So final question. How does you being this busy, traveling with the vision and just kind of executing on creativity and all the taxing that it takes on your brain and body, how does that affect your intimacy life when it comes to Laura?
Like getting laid?
Getting laid, bro.
I think it amplifies it in some ways. Because think about if I don't see my wife for 4 days, it's like we haven't had sex for a year.
Yeah.
It's like it's like I've been released I'm like the Count of Monte Cristo. I've escaped from prison and I'm walking in with ripping my shirt off and you know, we're having sex in the shower and on the counter and on the thing because it's like I haven't seen you in 4 days.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of that, which is kind of nice. Like absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Yeah.
This year has been the heaviest year of travel I've ever done. And I told my wife at the beginning of 2023, I said, this will be the heaviest year of travel you'll ever see now or ever again. I have a book tour. I want to visit 110 cities with my community. I want to meet 5,000 plus people in person, and I want to do all these things. And so it's going to be challenging. So in those regards, absence amplified the sex. However, there were times also getting back into a sync of things. I did find myself, this is interesting, I found myself being gone a lot in September and October. And I found the longest I've ever been away from home was 7 days. and this was in September. I came home after 7 days, and it was almost as if I was disrupting a new household, like regimen.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, we've figured out how to live without you for 7 days, and now you're coming in and messing up our shit.
Damn.
I was like,
Damn.
I'm glad this is my last year of like heavy travel, because it was interesting to see that happen. And there was moments where, the ignition of sex, the sex gods were raining down on both of us for, multiple times of the year. But then there were also times where it's like, hey, I have not seen you in 7 days. And we got to like reconnect, and we got to reconvene, and all those types of things. So it was definitely, this year was very challenging, rewarding at times, but also very challenging at others. And it also reminded me, there was times also with Cody, my business partner Cody, where I didn't see Cody one time for 2.5 months, and we hadn't even talked in like 3 weeks because I was going so hard this year. And I walked into his house, we had a business meeting, and I almost felt like it was the first time I had met him all over again.
Really?
That's how important it is to connect weekly, or connect, all the time. And so, and then I had a friend of mine that went through a divorce this year, very well-known, very, very well-known person. And he made a comment to me. He said, "What's your plan this year? Are you going to keep traveling like this?" I go, "No, I have very specific goals. I want my book to hit Wall Street Journal bestseller. I want these things to happen. I know I have to sacrifice. Like I can't just pray and go, please God, please let these things happen. I have to go put the freaking work in, right? So I know that had to happen, but I'm going to stop traveling." He's like, "Good, because I want to tell you something. I'm going through my divorce, and I can tell you it wasn't just one thing. It was 1 degree a year of separation, 1 degree a year of separation. Then 8-9 years later, we woke up, we're like, wow, we shouldn't be married anymore. We're so far off, and our values and everything have changed because we've lived almost 2 different lives. So I've learned a lot this year. No problems, no fights, nothing, none of that kind of stuff. But there were definitely that moment when I came home after being gone a week where I was like, oh shit, I almost have to be like, ask for permission to get back in sync with the regimen of the day.
Do you feel like those degrees of separation is like?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's times where that happens even in our life where I have to like go back and I have to meet her where she's at and bring her back to the thing, or vice versa. But it's not far. I mean, I'm aware of it. And also my wife knows she married a tractor. She knows and when we were on our first date, I said, if you don't want a man that will work until he has a heart attack, then do not marry me. Actually, I said, do not go on a second date with me. That was my first upfront contract to her. I said, if you don't want to marry a man that will die from a heart attack, then don't go on a second date with me, because I will die from a heart attack from going so hard. I will. I actually pray to God that I do. Here lies Pace. Homeboy went hard and had a heart attack. Yeah. That's why I want to die.
Yeah.
And so she goes, I love it. And that's why I appreciate her calling me her tractor. It's like she knows I'm meant to be out in the field doing the thing. But there's times where we have to reconvene and do the thing. But now we've got the 4th baby on the way. And so thank you. I was very aware that I wanted to travel less. And we even made a decision this year where I said, hey, usually during the summertime, we get in our Airstream, we bounce around, we visit the community, we do all the things, and we're all over the country. I think we should get a summer home and just live in a second home away from the 120-degree weather. And instead of us visiting the community, have the community come hang out with us. So community camp was actually a warm-up to a new life that we're planning on doing. Because I know I don't want to travel as much. I want to bring our community to us and do events at the new home. And so I'm very intentional and strategic in the way that I do things, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't come without a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
But a couple pieces of advice I'll give to men, and one, hire this guy. I've seen this guy change so many people's lives in our community. Inside of our sub-2 real estate community, there's so many people have gone to you and said, hey, I went to your mastermind, I went to your thing, and this man changed my life. And it's really cool. I get people thank me for bringing you in the community. I'm like, that's why we built the community, so we can all hang out and love on each other and whatever else. So number one, hire this guy. Number two, don't ever complain to your wife, ever, about anything. Don't ever, ever, ever complain. That's one thing I have. My wife will ask me, hey, how was your day? And no matter what was going on, I just say, it was dope. It was so dope. And in my mind, I'm like, I had to fire this person, do this. This person stole 30 grand from us. Hey, this guy, blah, blah, blah. I lost $1 million in a Ponzi scheme last December. And my wife found out because she watched the YouTube video about it.
Oh, man.
She's like, is this real?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know. She's like, how did you not bring this up? I go, because I'm not here to complain. I'm not going to bring home my shit and put it on you. Because here's the other thing. Here's what women also don't want is if you're going to go out and make the money, which you should, that's your freaking job, go out there and make that money proudly, come home, and the last thing you ever want to do is rub anybody's face in shit, okay? She's also going to do all the things, and she's not going to rub your face in shit. That's a good marriage. But don't complain about how hard it is to go out and make money. Don't go out and, oh, it's so hard and I worked so hard and I did all this stuff. Dude, nobody wants that, because then your wife is like hesitant to go and do things that she needs to. All money is a tool, and you're handing those tools to her. And if you're complaining about how hard it was for me to gather these tools, you're not giving her permission to go and use the tools properly. She's hesitant. She's this, that, and the other, and she can't do her job. So biggest thing I could tell men, I'm not a life coach. I'm not a marriage coach. You know, I learn from you. A lot of people learn from you. But I could tell you one thing that's worked for me for the last 7 years is I do not ever complain to my spouse about anything. Nothing. Zero. Zilch. Not a human in my life. Money. Nothing. There's not. If you ask my wife, she'll say, when was the last time Pace complained about something? She'll say, Pace never complains. But when I'm around Jamil, I'm like, this mother, you know.
Yeah, you vent to the right people.
Yeah, Jamil's my work wife.
Yeah. Just let it be that way. Well, bro, first of all, thank you so much for
Thank you.
For becoming the man that you became, because that allowed you to plant these seeds that now you have this forest that has grown, and I'm one of those trees that has been able to grow from what you've planted.
You and I get to grow up together, bro. Boom. That's. I mean, there's nothing better in life. I get to hang out with Steven and his beautiful wife, and you just had him on your show.
Yeah.
And I watch them growing up. I get to grow up. You get to grow up. It's so fun to be able to grow up together and give each other permission to like screw up, but forgive each other and just keep moving forward. And I'm grateful for how hard you push and how consistent you are. I show up to the Daily Dial, I think like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I sat there and I just listened to you, and I was like, this dude is the shit. Consistent, you show up, you work your butt off, and you change people's lives. I'm grateful to be here, so thank you.
Thank you, man. Guys, another episode on the TMCT podcast. Stay tuned. It's been amazing.
Later.
Peace.